Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of the Low-Code Café, episode 33. My name is Bogdan Litescu. I'm the CEO and founder of Plantanap. For those of you that are new, let me give you a brief explanation of what this event is about. It's something that we do every week where we get our community and also our team together to discuss product updates, the roadmap, what's coming, but also get into the hands-on part. So analyze, look at support cases and the solutions that we and our customers find, and afterwards also start building something, showcasing the product for various use cases. This event is recorded and we publish all of it on our YouTube channel. So in case you are new, I invite you to browse the channel. There's 32 episodes, 1 hour long, but each of them will have like a chapter list, so it's very easy to navigate. So the agenda for today will be looking at from the trenches, so looking at the support channel, the stories that happen, and our head of support, Dale Warner, will tell us some interesting stories. And afterwards, this week we'll focus more on the product because we have a major new release coming, very interesting release. And Reza, our head of product, will explain to us what it is and also show us some of the cool features included. Thanks all for being here. I know that some of you that are in the DNN space chose this event over the DNN Summit that just started. So thank you for being here, and I'll also be at the DNN Summit tomorrow speaking, so hope to see you there as well. So Dale, I will pass it over to you.
All right. Hello. So today we're talking about it's all about the product, all the things that are coming in the release about to be released. And then we'll also be talking about the things that are coming up and in the next release. And also we hope to have a roundtable discussion around our future roadmap. And most of this today will be presented by Reza, but a few of the features are going to be I'm going to talk about right now. So there were several things that has come in over the last month with the through the support center that impacted and were resolved by changes in the product. And there's a couple of them that I wanted to highlight today. So the first one is support for multiple API endpoints. And this is an easy one to demonstrate. This is a case where we have a DNN Sharp implementation where we have a variety of the products from DNN Sharp, and then we've upgraded to the App Builder Plantanap interface. So we've installed App Builder on the site, and here are my API endpoints that I had previously before installing the App Builder. When I go to take a look at the App Builder, and notice there were half a dozen of them there. When I go to look at the App Builder and open up the APIs, there's only 3 here. And so the sensation is, hey, what happened to my API endpoints? Well, we've added a new selection box here where by default it shows you the APIs that are here, but and my original page was named, my original API endpoint was called my original API endpoint instance. That's the name of the module that I gave it. So whatever the name of the module that you gave it there, it's going to show up here, but we can click that and then navigate to the other to the existing instances. So this gives us a spot in one place to manage all of your API endpoints, even though they may be spread out among different instances. So hopefully that'll get rid of that sensation of, oh no, I just lost all my endpoints. They were never really gone, but this helps us find them easily. The next one is a nice one in Search or Search Boost, where we dealt with a couple of issues through the support center. One having to do with a multiple server implementation, and another where we're talking about indexing entities. So let's take a look at that. If we go to search, we have a current server and a master server. This is this setup has to do with people who have multiple servers, and the search feature was trying to index both servers even though they were identical. And so now we've built in logic where it's only paying attention to one of the server, and that among other things, it was causing system lockups. So this keeps that lockup from happening. So if you're in a multiple server environment, this next release of search will help you. The next thing is that we've added plant and app entities to the indexer. So notice I've got a setup here where we have 0 plant and app entities that are indexed, and let me show you what that looks like. If we go to, I've got a contacts entity, and I've got 4 people in here with their titles and email addresses. And if I were to go to the global search and look for example, Bogdan, and search, we don't get any search results. The reason is that the searcher is looking at pages and HTML text, but it's not paying attention to the data that's in our tables. So this is a really easy feature to implement. If we go into the builder and go to entities and look at our contacts and edit, there is a new click box to say enable indexing. And it says whether or not the contents of this entity, contact, is going to be searched, indexed. So I'm going to enable that and save. So that's kind of a one-click thing. You can choose on or off for every entity. And then all that content is going to be included in our search. So search runs from time to time, but I'm going to come into search and save it to force it to reindex. And so the jobs will run, and now we see that we have 4 entities that are included in our index. Of course, it's very small number, but those 4 records are now indexed. So if we go back to our system and go to our search and do done, we can see that it's now returning result. And when we click into it, it's going to take us right to the entity page where that exists. If we look at our search, and for example, it also indexes other fields besides the name. So if I search for product, I see the record for Reza, Dale, and then I have it's showing up for a completely different page that's not related to contact. And we can filter by contacts, for example, and say, so we click that and it filters down and it just shows us a contact record, and we can click in and see it. Again, it takes us right to the product page. So that's a handy feature, very easy to turn on and to activate and to use. And then the last one, we had a request come in through the support desk. In our recent set of low-code cafes, we've been talking about all the different ways the product can be extended. And there are ways to add themes, for example, to listings or other features. And TabsPro was not, there was not an ability to add a custom theme to TabsPro. And so that request came in and the development team provided that. And so just thought I would cover that. I'm not going to go deep today, but show you what that looks like. So I have a grid or a listing module, and I refresh it and notice it exists in a tab. And so we have entries and a selected item summary. And so you can kind of see how the tab is rendering. And I also want to call out your attention to the fact that we're using this reference to the tab name, so entries -5 or selected item summary -6. And I'm calling your attention to that because I created a custom template just to demonstrate that it can be done. That if we go in and switch the theme from Bootstrap, I started with Bootstrap and made a gray version, but it's a gray, you see my comment here, gray with a wide border and specialized links. So I'm going to save that and refresh my page. And you'll notice a couple of things. Now, notice it has a gray border with the tab kind of popped on top of the gray border. And it also, if you look at the entity, at the hashtag, the page name, it says entries dash, and then it has this thing extended ID 5. I was just demonstrating that if you wanted to do some customization within the template and provide your own name. And so see, this one says extended ID 6. It has a special content in it. So you can modify the tab and modify the TabsPro for different content. And again, while I'm not going to actually work through the development, I wanted to show you where that exists within the development. So within the desktop modules, DNN Sharp, TabsPro, templates, this follows our standard naming, and you can see this on our other low-code cafes of how to extend products and add themes, which I'll link to from this, by the way. We started with a bootstrap and a bootstrap material. I added bootstrap gray by making a copy of bootstrap. So just copy that folder and paste it right back into templates. And then we made it from there. That gave us a good starting spot. And I made some changes. So the first place that you'll make changes is in the template config. You give it a different name. So I gave it bootstrap gray, excuse me, different ID. Different name, and the name shows up cosmetically. That's the same thing that you saw within the TabsPro administration. And then I added a custom pointer to the tabs XSL, which is the template for the thing. So that gave us our custom template, and then within let's see, within styles, I made a couple of DNN changes. Within styles min, I made a couple of CSS changes, changed the height of something and the border. So that was some customization in that. And then in the tabs XSL, this is the place where I went in and found the spots for changing and adding my extended ID, again, just to prove that it would work. So these are the files that are involved in the custom setup. And if you were to do a custom version of TabsPro theme, that's generally the pattern you'd use. You would make a copy of an existing one, typically, make sure that it works, and then start modifying it to make your customizations. Okay, so that's the third thing that came in through the Help Center that we've worked into version 1.12. Beyond that, the last thing I wanted to mention is just commitment on your part is required to keep your website and your tools updated. The underlying DNN is continually being updated for security purposes, and our tools are being upgraded for both features and to deal with security issues as well. And so there's it would be expected, it would be a good practice to commit to keeping up those up to date to get these new features and get the ongoing security. We have a page, I'll push the link out here in just a minute, that is our compatibility page that talks about what versions that we support and gives you an idea of minimums and maximums. For example, we just started to, we've cleared .NET Nuke 9.8.1, and that's about to be announced as part of our 1.12 release. And we have an ongoing, we continually look at the higher versions and commit to upgrading ourselves. So you'll see that in the compatibility page, and I encourage you to take a look at that. There's also talks about minimum versions, and we work hard to support at least a year back, and sometimes a little bit longer, but that's an ongoing process of what we consider a minimum version is. for support and upgrades. So take a look at that page. And with that, I will yield to Reza. Or try. Let's see if I can unshare. There we go. Stop sharing. Reza, if you'll take over and talk more about what we're going to see in 112. Actually show us, I think.
Yeah, seeing is believing. So thanks, Dale, and thanks everyone for joining. Have a lot I'm going to go through today, and kind of taking the approach of, I really want to give you a look at 112. There's a whole lot coming here, and that's you know, why this one's taken a little bit longer than they usually do. I think we'll resume our monthly cadence after this one. There is such a thing as too much of a good thing, and we as a team, I think, found that out a little bit today, and just in this release in general, and kind of trying to balance, you know, all the things we committed to and helping people out because they were reporting some issues and things and not wanting to have them wait. But of course, that makes the release get bigger and take longer to test and retest and things like that. And we do test a lot. So gonna, you know, follow a format showing you 112, talking about what's coming in 113 and what's on the horizon. And then really wanting us to hear from you all. And after you kind of see what we're thinking and where we're going, what are we missing? What are we getting right, you know, and so really looking for your ideas, your input, your feedback, and really hoping we have a chance to, whether it's through the chat or just raising your hand and talking, but would like us to have a good conversation. And I encourage you, this is an excellent type of thing for the community forum. We do look at that a lot. I do more and more every day, finding that's the right place for us all to interact, and you're going to see us there more and more as a team. So please, you know, this kind of stuff is great for there, and I think we're going to make some enhancements to the forum and introduce some categories so you can put feature requests and vote on them and different things. So it's not just a one size fits all there. So you still have your good knowledge base, but then we can have some other good conversations and dialogues and things going on. So with that said, I'm going to break out of the normal kind of view that I've been following, and I have a new tool, a new view that I'm trying out for the roadmap. We'll take a look at that in a second. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of this release kind of in a nutshell. We've got over 70 items that we've worked on in here. I think the current build number of App Builder is up to 80 or 81, just so you have an idea of how many cycles and iterations we've gone through on this one. And so whole lot of things, and we've touched all kinds of areas of the product, and some of them pretty deep and in meaningful ways, as Dale has shown, like with the multi-server search indexing. So without further ado, this is the kind of new look, and I think it gives us a better feel, and I'll be using this going forward if it's a success today. I like this view and ability to kind of keep things current and get a better look and feel for where things are going. So as I kind of walk down some of these, I'm not going to show everything, and this is by no means for 112 comprehensive. Like I said, there's over 70 items in this release. But I've got some of the kind of big deliverables or highlights here, and we'll hop into an instance that I've set up for us and take a look. So first kind of thing that comes up here, and that's what I'll be demoing as. We took a look at the roles. And this is something I know we've talked about in this setting in the past, and what roles really mean. And as we've developed over the last year, we realized we want to take a step back, and maybe what we thought about roles and as the platform, and we're seeing how people are using it, has evolved. We went through and got a matrix and kind of went through every possible kind of feature and touch point and major interaction area of the system. We will be publishing this and having it available in the Learn.Plantain app, but you know, like all great things, it starts on a spreadsheet. And so this is a source of truth now, and will be kept up to date and going forward, and kind of becomes our guiding light here. And as you can see, it's everything from workflows, pages, APIs, and you know, who can read, edit, delete, kind of the CRUD is what applies to most things, but some of these have some different flavors. And we just kind of went through and said, okay, So the roles that the system has now is you know, as we know, is like manager, citizen developer, admin. We've introduced a new role, and we felt like something was missing, and that was this, and we talk about it a lot on here, but low-code engineer, and having the ability to differentiate the two main developer roles that are interacting with the system. And really the big difference between them, citizen developer is meant to be a little more restrictive, and for developers who are maybe a little more junior, or we want to give less privileges to, low-code engineer then becomes kind of the more senior type developer in the application, and has abilities particularly around executing some of the more complex actions, running code, access to certain data, and kind of seeing what's going on in the system overall. We also took a step back and said that the admin role currently, and what you've known so far, has had a lot of ability to do development things. And as we're working with customers and doing different implementations and starting to get into bigger enterprise settings, needed some checks and balances and some separation of duties. And so admin is becoming truly like what it sounds like. This is someone who can, you know, manage and create users and settings, like a system administrator. They can see logs and different things, but they're not a developer. They're not going to create things in the data model or edit the pages or be building this system, right? And so that's really citizen developer and low-code engineer. Now, of course, we've accounted for administrator and host, and that's our more super users, but that gets more into working with the platform itself. Another thing we're moving towards, and we'll take a look at in a second, is really lessening the reliance and dependence on DNN, the DNN persona bar, and needing that, especially for the basic nuts and bolts things you need to do to build and maintain an application. And so that advanced stuff there is really too much for most people, and you don't need it. Plant an app gives you everything you need. There was a few missing features, and I think we've got most of them baked in this release. The last couple will drop in the next release, and we'll take a look at that. But an important thing here is just that this admin user, they will also have the ability to set up certain types of security settings, provisioning, and enabling what's enabled in the system or not. And then the low-code engineer and citizen developer will make use of those. And as we were going through this, we kind of realized, well, what if it's a small organization and there is no admin and it's the low-code engineer's job? You have the ability, as we know, to assign more than one role to an individual. And that's how you would do it, is by combining these roles. So you're going to have some real good, clear distinction between who can do what. And when you have someone that is maybe more privileged or a hybrid type role, then you give them 1, 2, 3, whatever of the appropriate roles that they need to function in that setting. And as we go forward as well, and we've already kind of accounted for this, it's not built into this release, but this is what's coming, is that some of these will be able to be defined and be environment specific, right? So the ability to see, as a developer and you're building the system, you kind of need to see all the data that you made of, an entity. You've got some forms and listings, and you're, creating buttons that call workflows and do things. You need to see if the data changed. That's not appropriate for a production environment, though, right? And so those data viewing type roles and seeing all the data are more like this manager. And so kind of, just not trying to beat this topic to death, but it was a cornerstone of a lot of the work we did. And I think it'll help set the stage for why we've built and done some of the things we've done, including create the low-code engineer role. And so first thing you'll kind of see here is if I, on the configuration, we've also updated, I may have timed out, let's see. No. And so we've updated the descriptions of these roles to reflect a lot of what I've just described at a high level, right? And so your managers, now this is a role that I just created for the system, right? But the default ones, user and power user in this case, is just ones that you can create and manage. You don't have to use this user role. We just give you one for general users of the system that are not involved in the building, care, maintenance of the system. But you can create your own. For example, I'm a power user, and you can specify what they can do when you're defining your data model. But the ones that are built in, these are the key ones, and that's what we were just looking at in that matrix. You know, manager has access to all the data stored in the system, and they can manage all users except admins and citizen developers, right? The developer roles, they can't provide those roles. They're more about the data and the people that are going to access and use the application itself. And then, you know, citizen developer, they have the ability to create screens, application, workflows, all that kind of stuff. Low code engineer, everything citizen developer can do, but then getting into more advanced coding actions and some of the settings. You don't want all hands turning things on and off. And so this is a role that comes with not just more skill, but more responsibility and trust is the idea here, right? And then lastly, the admin, like I said, they're not a builder anymore going forward. They still have some of that ability in 112 and 113. We're going to be working to pull all that back out and really start putting that matrix we saw down into the weeds and the granular level, button by button, screen by screen, section by section. So a lot of this is me kind of letting you know, heads up, this is coming, and you can kind of be thinking about that. And so this low-code engineer role is now introduced and is shipping. If when you upgrade, you will pick it up. Or when a new instance is installed, it ships with this now. Also, and I spoke about the ability to build and do things without needing to get into advanced settings and kind of have overprivilege because of some missing functionality. And we'll take a look at two of those right now. One is the ability to add modules and things to pages without having to be kind of a higher privilege super user type role, and the ability to create pages without having to use the page management functionality. And so right now I am logged in as a citizen developer, or sorry, low code engineer role. And so I wanted to show kind of what it looks like for that new role. And you'll see that there is no advanced settings. There is no persona bar here, just right out of the gates. However, this user will be able to, you know, go into edit mode, add things onto the page, and that sort of stuff. Now, also what you're seeing is the new look that ships with the homepage. If you remember, and I probably have a example of it here in QA land. The first kind of thing you've seen historically has been this video and hey, get started, right? This page was always meant to be just a placeholder. You got to have something when there's nothing, but we've far outgrown this, and we've thought a lot about what to do with that first page. And you know, what we settled on was, why don't we bring in the learn.plantain app here, right? And this makes a lot of sense when someone's new, when someone's starting out, and actually it's quite handy even when you're not. And so you can, from right here, access the documentation within the application, you know, hop right out to the community forum, and as well as jump over to YouTube and see the videos. And so if you think this is a good idea and useful, something we've also talked about, and I think is coming soon, is what to do with the getting started, right? This thing is great the first time, but as you build, as you become familiar, it loses its value. And an idea we're kicking around is going ahead and maybe embedding that learn.plantain app right here, and slightly changing the name on this. And then, you know, the homepage kind of covers this getting started stuff from within the learning portal. And I think we just have a lot more than we did before. So the second thing I wanted to show was that page management. And again, no persona bar here. What we've got now is a page management section. And you have the ability, again, for these lesser privileged users especially, to see the pages that are in the system, whether they're visible in the menu or not. And you have the ability to create new pages, to edit them, move their order around. So it's a light version of what you're used to seeing in the page management. And so feedback, you know, there's more to come here. One important thing, this delete is a soft delete, and it will send things to the recycle bin, which then would need to be accessed by someone who has access to that in the advanced settings. Probably a very near-term future thing we'll have in the second pass, 113, is a restore button when things are recycled, and that you can see they are in the recycle bin. Just didn't make the cut this time, and figured most of you are pros and know how to restore that stuff. But again, trying to target and get in a position for people who don't know everything and are starting out and are new, or that you are having help and collaborate and build the platform together. And so page management is here. The updates section, I won't show it, but you have the ability to search and sort and some different things, so it's not a, again, one size fits all type thing. And that's particularly around the change log. And so you can kind of, hey, what's everything that's changed in forms, right? And you can just filter the list down very quickly and see like, okay, if I take this update, what am I getting historically? Maybe you're a couple behind or something, updates, and Dale inspired you and you're like, I better keep myself current. And so it's just a little easier to see everything and figure out what's changed in certain areas, what types of changes, what's fixed bug-wise, what are new features, that sort of thing. Dale touched on multi-server support and as well as the multiple API endpoints. That was a very highly requested feature for some time. So I'm hoping that's going to make some people happy. Did a lot of work. The other big focus area, and we have done whole low-code cafes on it a couple of weeks ago, was around workflows and being able to save and test from within the workflow, export, import workflows, specify default values on your inputs so that you don't always have to cook them in if you want to have some fail safes or some things that can be overridden but don't have to be. That's what that's for. Making things required, knowing that sometimes you're going to have some of these complex workflows that update, change, manipulate data, and there's key information that you need to make sure it gets passed in, whether it was a development error and someone didn't pass it in, or perhaps due to some user interaction that something wasn't picked or selected, and then you say go, and it's expecting a value from the form to be passed into a workflow, but there wasn't one there, right? We see sometimes with tokens and different things, you think you're going to get a value all the time, you don't. And in this case, you can protect your workflows against running, partially running, and then corrupting maybe something that was happening in the process. I'll give a quick, I know we've shown this a lot, but maybe everyone wasn't on that time when we were looking at workflows. And so I'll just touch on it real quick here. So we have the ability to import export. I'll show the required fields. So I've kind of got this one. It's every type of thing that we can take in. They're all set to required in this workflow. And you'll see that from this side of the house, the tester, it's going to give you a nice visual feedback. If you tried to call the workflow from another workflow or from a form or within your application, it will respond back to you and not try to execute your workflow and say that, hey, required parameters weren't sent in, right? So you're not going to get this UI when you're inside of code trying to execute one. But when you're here testing and things, it's there for you. And like I said, it's not just protected on the client side. It is a server side validation that happens before the workflow tries to execute. We're going to make sure that anything you've said is required comes in. Now, I'll give you two birds with one stone here. We'll hop over to our QA environment, and I talked about default values. So one, I'll show that, and how I'll show that is to quickly copy this workflow, and let's import it in here. And so you're like, hey, what's going on? Remember, this workflow is more about all these different input parameters, and that they can have default values now. And so a couple things I want to show. One, there was an entity that existed in the other environment that doesn't exist here. If I tried to save and test this, it's going to tell me, hey, this is no bueno. This entity doesn't exist anymore. Just for our purposes here, I'll point it to one that does. And I'll save and test. And I left myself open to this on purpose. So what you can see here is that you can still type things in, right? And override things. However, if you don't, it's letting you know that there is a default that it's going to apply because that's what was specified. And I'm going to go ahead and try to run this, and you're going to see there was an issue. So this is me being a little bit transparent and vulnerable with you all. The dates we've adopted a really good date standard. We need to continue making it more user-friendly. And even though I put dates in a format that was good and readable to me, the system is looking for an ISO date format, right? And so if I go ahead and pick something here, I think time is fine, but we'll just select a couple of dates. And now go ahead and run. And all this workflow did was just take the input parameters and then spit them back out on the other side. And so you can see everything that was the default was echoed back to me, right? But this is super handy when you're inside and you've got actions and different things or values and baselines that you want to establish. You can have those baked in and built into your workflows. And how you do either one of these is, again, to either check the box for required or to set it as the default. It's one or the other, right? It doesn't make sense if it's if you put something in, it doesn't make sense as a default to call it required. It's never going to fail because there's a default there. If you make it required, it is not letting you put the default in. It is saying it's required to be provided to me as an input. So that you, again, if it's that important and that required, you want to make sure you're not just relying on a default, but that you got something in. Otherwise, you would have used default. I know at first you kind of think like, hey, why can't I use both? But if you really kind of start playing and working with it, it makes a lot of sense that it's one or the other. And so I see I'm getting a little tight on time, so I want to make sure we have time for conversation. So I'm going to kind of move along quickly. The calendar, we saw this last week. It's released as an MVP. Mainly, it had been a beta. We took some feedback, and there were just some minor enhancements and kind of bug fixes. We want to keep going on that one. There's a whole lot that we can explore and expose there, but it works out of the box now and is pretty powerful on its own merits. This one is a quick one I'll touch on. I think it's important. I think this is huge, and so we've had the audit logs here. And event logs have been here for a while, right? And this is the stuff where it's kind of the stuff that's being logged automatically, logins, security stuff, errors, that sort of thing. However, there is a whole lot of logs that live on disk. And if you've ever had to go and try to troubleshoot, or, I mean, these are super valuable and helpful when you see an error over here, perhaps, and it's not descriptive enough, right? You just a general thing, null reference or some very techie generic .NET type error. A lot of better information lives inside of these system logs that are on disk, and so we've made those accessible through here, and they get quite big, so they can't be viewed yet inside of just a pop-up or something. But what we do let you do is download them, and if you are using VS Code or your editor of choice, once you've opened once, these will be associated, and as soon as it downloads, you click and you're right into your IDE of choice, and you can explore, look, gain greater insights. And it's not just error stuff that's in here. There's a lot of good metadata and things, and we're going to continue going down this path. We did a lot just to bring this to you. We had to do a lot of unification of our logging models and things, standardize them, where things are logged. There's a round 2 we're going to do that's going to make sure all the, when you turn debug mode and things like that on, like in forms or something like that, that all of that it is put into logs currently, but those need to get pulled in as well. And so if you see something and you pick this up and you're saying, hey, I turned on debug, for example, errors will go here to this action form 1. But if you are saying, well, I turned debugging on, why am I not seeing, all that good metadata? That's coming in 113. Step-by-step, value drop by value drop. It's on its way. So I talked about the roles rationalization. And another big thing we did, we took those roles, and the first area we really did apply them quite well and pretty deep was in the KPI dashboards. I wanted to, in this release, have the ability in the entity builder to allow you to basically have a toggle that says turn a dashboard on. And on the listing first kind of view you get out of the box with any entity you define is that listing page, and it'll have the dashboard in there. this close. It'll 100% be in 113. It's already in testing. It just didn't, it was either delay another week or get you the release and we'll put it in 113. But a lot of work was done there and those roles and things were applied. So what you have now is, I think I put it here. If I'm a developer type role, citizen developer, low code engineer, I have the ability to work with the templates to configure the unconfigured tiles. However, when a standard user or any other role that's not a system, administrator, developer type role comes to see these, the ones that are not configured are not shown at all. So you don't have to configure them all, or you don't have to worry about it looking weird or exposing things to people that they shouldn't be exposed, as well as the permissions that are on the entities themselves. So if you've got a to-do entity like I do here, and I've said that users can only see their own to-dos, right? When a standard user then would come, and let's say there's 10 to-dos in this table, but only 2 of them belong to the user that's signed in looking, that count won't say 10, it'll say 2. So not only will it not let them see at all entities that they don't have permissions to right now, but it will also apply down to the record level. Now, we'll talk about 113 and some things we're going to do to expand that ability out. We want the security, that's how it is out of the box, but there are times that you want to go outside of the box, and it's your choice as a developer to be responsible and think about what you're doing. And there is a time and place where it's wholly responsible to say, I don't care if the world, unsigned in users, see the counts of whatever's, right? Because this is on a public facing page or something, you'll be able to activate and define that. And that's something we're working on in 113. Also, and I've been leading up to this for several weeks, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to take this release as quickly kind of as possible. There are some really important third-party library upgrades that we've done. And things just get old. It's not us, it's the library. It's a great library, but it had some vulnerabilities that were identified in it. And so we've patched, updated, and made sure that Action Form and Action Grid work really well with the newest version of this library. I can tell you what it is if anyone's that interested, but I feel like some of this stuff I don't want to reveal here in a recorded setting just for everyone's protection. So trust me, it's a good one to get, and it's going to patch some holes. They weren't massively exploiting you or anything like that. However, if someone runs a scanner and is looking at the library or something like that, it's going to say, hey, there's vulnerabilities in this, right? And in situations where you are in an enterprise or needing to remain compliant, and that's part of the compliance rules, keeping patch to current is really important. And so that's what we're doing, is making sure people, not just for the sake of checking the box, but that you are more secure and you're more modern. As these libraries, just like your apps and your instances, the more you let them lag behind, the more brittle they become and the more they kind of become harder to update. Features, bugs, a lot of stuff gets fixed by keeping current. So that's what we're doing. We've certified 981 and talked about the homepage. There was some licensing issues, some little kinks working out, particularly things like if you have a site that is www.myapp.com or just myapp.com, right? That's a thing. But if you were running in a mixed mode, but you were licensed to the www one, for example, and then you hit a page that doesn't have the www, it would have kind of reset and said you weren't licensed. Then you'd license it to that one and you'd hit the www one. That's all been fixed, and some other issues that were some application wise, some back in our licensing capabilities and in our system. And so we've just put some work into working out some kinks and making sure licensing is smooth and easy and convenient for everyone. And in general, you'll see this across the board. I just want to make sure everyone, we lose sight of this stuff, but always leaving bandwidth for support center and community forum, bug fixes, minor enhancements, Dale's world, right? And every release, we're always working that stuff in. I know it probably never feels like if you're not on the receiving end of something you were waiting for in a release, that it's fast enough, but we take a lot of that stuff in, even the forums. We'll find things in there, and if we can, turn them around as quick as possible. So 113, real quick, some highlights in here. Going to continue on workflows, and as I said, that was a big theme of 112. Sometimes we sprinkle the love all over, right? A little something here and a little something here, and that's great. But then there are times where it just makes sense for us as a team to really focus in and take a area of the system forward in a meaningful manner, right? Which means don't touch things here, don't focus here for now, but really go all in, like we've been doing with workflows. And we want to keep that going. Workflows are hot. There were some things that we wanted in 112, we started on, didn't make the cut. They got pulled into 113. And while we're here, why not see it through? I touched on this a little bit, I think last week, that our aim here is after 113 and 114, kind of end of Q1, we want to introduce that workflow gallery, right? And probably it'll be a new section or something of the community forum where we can share workflows with each other. We can share them with you all. You can share them with each other, publicly, privately, and even start moving towards being able to monetize those for people. And workflows kind of, are starting to gear up and become pretty powerful. They're mini apps in their own right. If you kind of get the right set of them working together, they can figure out some pretty complex things, do some really useful, reusable things across any application. And so we can all benefit each other by sharing these. And as we move towards that, some things that we want to do. One, I've been talking about as people keep making more workflows, that list becomes kind of big and unruly, right? If we hop over here into my test environment, you can see that, and this isn't even a big list, but it's tough to spot this stuff. But a lot of these go together, right? And so wanting to introduce this idea of groups and reusable groups, and the reason we didn't put it into 112 is as we started to do it, we realized that's a great idea, and we want to put that into entities as well. And so we want to make this something that's reusable, so that if you've defined a group, and you're going to probably want to put your workflows into that group, and you're going to want to, maybe it's like a ticketing or something, right? A little app you're making, or a section of your app for ticketing, and you've got a bunch of workflows for ticketing. You've probably got a bunch of entities for ticketing as well, and you'll be able to reuse that group across. You can have ones that are just standalone, and you don't have to use them in entities if they're just for workflows, but not having to have you double copy things. And as we move later, you'll start being able to make use of these, maybe to extract sections. Hey, I want to take everything that's related to this group, entities, workflows, whatever, let me extract that out of this application and import it over here, that sort of thing. So wanted to make sure we kind of structured this right, and not just have it be like a generic tag, but something solid the system really understands. Being able to have greater debugging and auditing in these workflows. Again, you've got workflows calling workflows and things, and one step and one of them fails, and you just get this message that's like, hey, this ID or this thing didn't work. It's a little tough to trace that out. And so again, we've got all the new logging stuff there, and I'm showing you the stuff on dislogs. We want to start writing workflow logs out there, and not just for troubleshooting, but it's a great thing for audit. Some of these workflows change data, do things, and you're going to be able to see, well, who did this? When did they do it? When did this run? And so it becomes a really good audit functionality as well. Being able to run workflows as tokens, save and execute the tests of workflows. And so you've got these default parameters and inputs and things, but sometimes, a workflow can have many paths it takes, and you can say, okay, this is happy path, this is unhappy path, here's all my inputs. You can save that, so you don't have to keep typing that in over and over. And as you're updating your application, whether through upgrades or just continued building, this almost becomes like the low-code version of a kind of unit testing and test automation through the workflows. So some other things in workflows. See, we're getting tight on time, and I don't want to lose out on chance for some conversation. Like I said, the dashboards, you'll be able to have those automatically show and hide just from where you define your data model. This one's really cool. I showed you the page management thing. I can show this maybe in another cafe. I don't think we're going to have time this time, but I had a sneak peek of it. So the ability, you create these entities and things, and you can see them here, that such an entity exists, but you don't know what's in them. Right, and that listing of the grid doesn't necessarily always show you or show different people, and so being able to query against that table is what's essentially created here in the database. And so giving you a SQL runner that you will be able to turn on as that admin role. So out of the box, not going to be there, because this is a pretty powerful feature that you want to make the choice. Do I want this enabled and allow the low code engineers and the citizen developers to run SQL statements and query the database, update the database, edit, create views, things like that, without needing SQL Server Management Studio. When you run stuff, you can export the results out as JSON of your query, right to Excel, a couple different formats. And so I think that's pretty powerful. While I'm here, I'll show you another cool thing. Sometimes you have these different entities, like this status one. It's a reference entity. It's not exposed in the menu, right? I don't want everyone to see this other than the person who manages putting data in there sometimes. So what we've got now for you is a shortcut here where you can just click from the entity and land right on the page that is for that, even though this is really a child of this to-do page, and no need to expose it in the menu at all if it's just for maintaining the data in it, or only people that can work with App Builder need to get to it. Well, then you can just shortcut your way out from here. Some enhancements coming to Page Builder and being able to override. We'll have a default template in there of CSS that controls things like the size of fonts and what the breadcrumbs look like. Do you want to expose the terms and conditions or not? And those are all turned on by default, but we'll have them commented out real nice and things. And then you'll be able to, just from Page Builder, come and make some adjustments and tune and configure the look and feel of your application a little bit better. Some big enhancements coming to forms and grids. We're going to keep going with upgrading some of these libraries and things to make them modern and more current. Because setting the stage for in some of the future releases, I know there's a lot of conversation going on in Support Center as well as Community Forum about support for Bootstrap 4, both in the forms and in the templates and things. And some of what's holding us back from that are some of these libraries. And so bringing them current is going to make it much easier to implement those things. And we hear you, we want it to, we're gonna get that stuff implemented. And the last one I'll kind of touch on here, and I think Dale mentioned it, just is that, yes, I know DNN 990, I believe, came out today properly, not just release candidate. This entire release is being worked against it and being tested against it. So we'll know if everything's good. If we find any issues, we'll adapt and get it cleaned up so that when we do release, and if we find out ahead of time, hey, everything's looking real good because you're really itching to go to it for some reason, we'll let you know we think it's okay. We haven't certified stamped it yet, but it's looking pretty good. But otherwise, I aim to come out of 113 fully certified and supporting 9.9. And our big thing that'll happen here at the kind of end of March is when this is looking, is that we're going to be rolling out the kind of low-code academy, whole training setup that is on Udemy, a free trial, a free plan, a free version. So you can sometimes, just spin up a version, try some things, test some things out, and maybe not have to be inside your main application. A lot of reasons and good things coming there, and that's a really big milestone for us, that a lot of all this other stuff, and so now you can understand why the low-code engineer role, the citizen developer role, page management, SQL Runner, because you don't need to get deep under the hood. You've got everything you need to build, maintain, administer your application, and know what's going on. So I'm going to pause right there. We've got 5-6 minutes left. I've got things in the works. There's still room in 14 and 15. 14 and 15 will take us up to summer, and then second half of the year where we're going. And I give these updates weekly, by every other week, and I know this one was big, but like I said, you're getting 70 new things, bells, whistles, and all of the above. I wanted to take some time and walk through those, make sure you understand the roles. We'll be always looking at these things now going forward and talking together, and as this fills out, you'll be the first to know. But is there anything I've touched on here that's exciting, not exciting, completely like, holy cow, when am I going to get this? Would love to hear about that. If not here right now, hit me up, hit us up on the community forum. Like, every day we're in there, we're looking at that stuff, and it influences. I mean, the Bootstrap stuff, a lot of these things have come right out of community forum and are on the roadmap now, near-term roadmap.
By all means, if you've got a question about anything that Reza or I have talked about, please pop that into the chat or a question. And if you want to just jump in and ask a question directly, you can raise your hand and we'll take a look at that as well. Reza, I was just looking, that's a lot of information, great information. From a developer standpoint, there's just so much in there. But the logs are really going to, I think, be very useful for troubleshooting, and then the just
Yeah,
I mean, the amount that you've tackled this time is amazing.
Yeah, big time saver. And I think as you start checking those things out, your knowledge is going to grow. You're going to learn a lot more about what's going on in the system under the hood, and give you better ideas, make you a better developer. While we're kind of waiting for things to come in, I'll touch on some key kind of milestone level highlights. So like I said, everything is about this low code academy in Q1 right now, the free plan rolling out, and that takes us up to 13. Where we're going next is going to be a big focus on entities in the data model, and being able to have reusable grouping, again, for the entities as well, detaching your app data into a separate database from the system database, the things that it takes to make Plant and App run. Right now are even though they're in separate database schemas, they're coupled together in the same database. That makes things like having development and QA environments difficult and manual. And so we want to separate those out first and foremost, and have your app data living in a separate spot. You'll be able to point to different places. So even out of your main application, you might just point over to dev or test, run something, say, okay, this risky job or workflow that's really big ran great. Let me point back to production. You know, as we increment our way, that's setting the stage for, I think, our next big milestone, which we've all been kind of waiting for, is the ability to import and export whole applications, have development, QA environments. You can do that stuff today, but it takes some gymnastics and skill on your part to back up, restore, bring things in piece by piece. There's several ways to do that now, some of them more convenient than others, but we want to make that super easy and convenient for everyone. And then that moves us towards, you know, I think what we want to roll out then in the second half, you know, summer timeframe, is getting into having like the marketplace, right? Where whole applications can be shared, sold, templates, starter templates to jumpstart, you know, a lot of this stuff, I mean, that's the point of low code. A lot of this stuff is the same in every application and repetitive. So if you've got a little app that kind of follows the pattern you like to build with and use, has some of those key-based entities and things in there, you'll be able to have those as kind of template starter apps and just import them in and jumpstart your next one from there. Also, as you know, so as the entity builder work happens with groups and being able to have your properties grouped inside of the entities themselves. So right now, some of these can get very big, and you've kind of got these two sections here right now, built-in and custom. What we want to do is add more sections and have some that are like the above the fold. These are the always required ones. They're going to go on like a primary form, and there'll be a secondary form, right? And same thing with your grid. What's the stuff that should always be shown on the listing versus things you can decide to add or turn other things in, but it'll be drag and drop like it is now, but you'll be able to drop them within these sections. And that's not just to help you organize them here, things like a recycle bin, so you don't have to delete a field fully. You can just take it out of circulation. No one will see it anymore, but the data is preserved for historical purposes and whatnot. But this will not just influence the database, but it'll propagate out to the front end of the application itself. And so there's a lot coming there. And that's where the big focus on entities is. And then being able to connect to the SQL and alternate data sources, existing tables and data structures that you have, and having entities based on that. And then that kind of moves into then like an import wizard, not just having the structure, but being able to slurp all that data into an entity if you wanted. So that's two things. One is I want to point to a table I have and just have that be the table. The other is there's some API or something out there that I don't want to attach myself right on top of, but I almost want to replicate it and ingest it structure-wise and data-wise, and then now go forward in this application with that. Keep them synced up, you decide.
So can you take the one question from Jim before we close out today?
Sure. Can you read it to me?
Sure. He's asking if there's going to be any issues if you were interacting with both the Plant and App management or DNN management of pages, like creating and managing pages.
For the page manager, no. And we've kept it simple, right? You have the ability to, specify your view permissions or roles, your edit ones, is the page visible or not, the name, the title, and is it in the recycle bin or not, and where it is. You know, that's, yeah, I know there's a ton of stuff in there around SEO and all this kind of other extra stuff. Most of it we never use, none of us, right? And especially when you're deep inside the workings of an app. And so you can still get at that stuff if you need, but through the advanced settings. But in this case, we kept it simple. We've tested the heck out of it. It works like an absolute champ.
Great.
And what you do in ours will show up. I mean, it's the same thing. Under the hood, it's all in the database, right? So you touch it here, you're going to see it reflected there. You touch it there, you'll see it reflected here.
Good. And we just got a comment that we've provided exactly what Jerry needed to know to move forward. So thank you for the feedback that we're giving good information in these. So I'm going to close us out today. I just want to thank everyone for participating. Of course, this will be posted onto YouTube, our YouTube channel, hopefully by tomorrow morning. And we just thank you for participating. We will have more good content next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.